Hello to everyone in the internet. Welcome to Friday, maggots. January 25th. I'm Nathan of Washington, and you're watching The Young Globalist, and this is the news in 2019. Alright, you political maggots. Macron calls Maduro an illegally elected official and supports Venezuelan protests while he himself is under protest. My oh my, the hypocrisy speaks for itself. Macron himself is an EU despot, is an EU despot and a hypocrite. And he thinks he has the clout to say this shit. Basically says that the removal of Maduro would be a return to democracy. Like, yeah, well, I mean, when you basically abuse democracy yourself, who the hell wants to listen to you? Friggin' Emmanuel Macron. God with us, the meaning of his name, the name Emmanuel. I mean, if that's God, then who the hell wants to be a Christian? But Macron almost in his statement recognized Juan Guaido, the self-proclaimed acting president of Venezuela, who by anyone else's rational measure would be a traitor to his country. Gee! Almost recognizing a traitor to his country. I wonder what Guaido and Macron have in common. But he basically, Macron refuses to recognize the legitimate Venezuelan government. Fine. I won't recognize his. He abuses his people, sells them out to migrants, and just otherwise commits acts of violence against them when they're doing peaceful protests. I won't recognize his government then. His government stinks. But Macron wanting influence internationally seems rather silly when he himself is already in so much trouble with all the yellow vest protests and such. Of course, you know, he's just pretending that those aren't real or that they don't matter. Of course, typical European political scumbag. Unbelievable. Cliff Sims outs Chief of Staff John Kelly as someone who tried to sabotage Trump. Chief of Staff John Kelly had attempted to sabotage Trump's attempt to pull out of Syria. Yeah, and there was quite a bit to go on that seemed pretty damning. But many in the White House have left and wrote books bashing or otherwise roasting Trump, but not Cliff Sims. In fact, he did the contrary. Well, he didn't really support Trump so much as he just kind of revealed how people within the White House were acting like complete and utter pieces of slime. He released a book which some very powerful excerpts were found among my sources. And as I said, it's pretty damning stuff. And it's most likely true because, like I said, the guy was there. And really, no one lies unless they have something to gain from it, and they really wouldn't have anything to gain from a lie like this. If anything, they'd have almost everything to lose. But Trump is very much an anti-establishment sort of president, and trying to put the screws to a lot of bad actors in the government. Sounds an awful lot like JFK, and he got assassinated. Of course, the establishment couldn't get away with killing Trump because, well, the internet. And those dutiful conspiracy theorists who just won't leave anything alone. You try to do anything with Trump and someone's going to hear about it or catch you on it. Information passes between people more easily than it used to. You just wouldn't be able to get away with it with any kind of real stealth. I guarantee you that, protests over the assassination would be guaranteed. But one of the quotes from this book states, I talked to the president on the plane. He swore to me that he wouldn't announce anything about Syria. Kelly said in an exasperated tone, I knew immediately what he was talking about. The president had for some time been privately expressing a desire to pull U.S. troops out of Syria. I wasn't involved in the national security decision-making process, but his inclination to pull out was well known throughout the building. Top military officials were urging him to keep a couple of thousand troops in the country to clear out the last remnants of the so-called Islamic State. Excuse me. To that point, he had begrudgingly acquiesced, but his patience was running thin. Kelly clearly was expecting him to say something about the topic anyway. We won't know until he walks off stage, Hagen replied with a resigned chuckle. This was a common sentiment among staffers who bristled at Trump's tendency to go off script during his remarks. It also happened to be what made him interesting to watch. No one knew what he would say, not even the staff. He well better know not to screw us on this, Kelly growled. I was taken aback by this brief but revealing exchange, which seemed to encapsulate Kelly's views of his job and of the president himself, which was that Trump was a missile of chaos and Kelly was the general trying to keep him in the silo. Many reporters over the years reported that this was Kelly's view of the job to various denials from the White House, but we all know it was true. So in short, this is a clear depiction that John Kelly and many others are trying to repress Trump. But Trump is simply irrepressible. The harder you press on him, the more he fights back. He's a loudmouth and a basically unstoppable force. Sure, sometimes it clearly here, sometimes Trump will capitulate, but he will do so begrudgingly and will most likely try again later. Bottom line is, the establishment is trying to keep Trump from doing anything that would get in the way of their power base. But it's not really working. The more they struggle, the more he fights back. It's an interesting situation. I guess this is what happens when you can't really assassinate your enemies. And I will leave you to think about that what you will. UFO or meteorite, either way, a Siberian mountain has collapsed upon itself, creating a national disaster. Flooding and a lack of proper flow of water to a number of Siberian villages. And there are some suggesting that it's a UFO, like a crashed alien spaceship or other unidentified flying object. It doesn't have to be alien. Could be like a military aircraft. Although who ever heard of it, a military aircraft crashing into a mountain and causing it to collapse on itself? That'd be an awfully big aircraft, wouldn't be very fast, nor practical. The expense would never be justified. But a meteorite, now that might make sense. Meteorites would be falling enough into Earth's gravity and would have enough force and velocity that you could totally see it collapsing a mountain if it landed on top of one. The Russian government is attempting to clear what's left of the mountain away, to get it out of there using explosive and other methods so that the normal flow of the water can resume and they can stop flooding. And make sure that the villages have clean drinking water and not get, flooded. It's a bizarre disaster that they're definitely going about it the right way, but they're still not sure what really happened. This is like one of those once every in a blue moon type of events, This doesn't happen every day. In fact, this is straight just bizarre. Life is certainly far more interesting than a lot of us want to think. And for our final story today, professional idiot Cher blasts Trump, claiming no one is really safe in Trump's America unless they're a member of Mar-a-Lago, live in Trump Tower, white, or wears a MAGA hat. She's in reference to the transgender military ban and the wall. It's obvious that Cher has been indoctrinated into the mainstream media depiction of Trump as essentially a biselective fascist, which only picks groups he likes and rejects those he does not. This is not a genuine depiction of Donald Trump in the slightest. Donald Trump is a cultural conservative. He does not support transgenderism. In some cases, he doesn't even support homosexuality. But at the same time, he doesn't want to see them abused or hurt because of it. He just doesn't agree with it, but doesn't want to see them get hurt. As an LGBTQ myself, being a bisexual, I feel in no way threatened by Trump. Who feels threatened by Trump? He's a big orange loudmouth. No, you want to feel threatened. Let me tell you something. I took a walk to a nearby state park recently, not too long ago. I think it was sometime last year. And I went off on one of the smaller trails off to the side that almost no one visits. There's a little tree grove in there I like to visit. It's a neat little place. And there was a fence there that cuts off the park from another part of the state. And the fence had been apparently wrecked, like a tree fell on it and had pressed down. There was a big depression in the fence. I was curious and I looked in there, and for a while there all I saw was just like a big hairy pair of shoulders. Right? Like big hairy quadruped shoulders, and my first instinct was bear. That to me was way scarier than Donald Trump. Trump is not scary to me at all. You have nothing to fear. And really, when you're talking about the military, it's a good idea not to have transgender people in it. Because with the hormone treatments and the transitions and shit, it's going to affect their athletic performance. It's going to affect their abilities as a soldier. It's really kind of just going to get in the way of things. It's a big problem. It's a problem they're ignoring for their political correctness. But Cher is just an indignant idiot, which is the worst kind of idiot, because they'll never listen to reason. Ever. Bottom line is, Trump is an exaggerated evil. Exaggerated for the sake of trying to drum up support for the Democrats in the next election. Demonize the enemy so you'll appear like a saint in comparison. Which, honestly, the Democrats, saints, ha! Yeah, right. Anyway, that's it for the Unglobalist today, folks. I'm out.